So I'm initiating that government phase in forensic voting. Uh, there's technologies that already exist with smartphones that will be able to scan your face, your retina, your fingerprint, and voice recognition. So I'm proposing that the federal government and all the way down to the state government, individual states, that they create an agency that deals with voting that oversees this technology. The technology basically would allow Americans to register to vote with forensic voting. They will be able to vote uh, by by logging into a government website and using their smartphones to scan their face recognition, their retina recognition, and their index fingerprint and so between voice recognition, retina recognition, your index fingerprint, people will be able to register and vote. And what this would do, it would ensure that nobody can vote with fake identities or or in other words, people. The reason I came up with this technology because nowadays the way the election systems work in this nation is fragmented. Every state has their own way of doing voting. It's not uh, one streamlined system. It's all with paper ballots and even though it's overseen bipartisanly, so when they do audits, they can tell who voted with identities. Uh, but it still gives people like Trump an opportunity to try to question and undermine uh, a fair and free election with false pretext to overthrow elections and undermining elections, and they use every little excuse to try to make it seem like it's a one big conspiracy when it comes to the elections. 2020 was a perfect example of that. Trump was saying that there were there were illegal migrants voting, that there were dead pets. People were registering with their cats and dogs' name to vote. There were dead people voting. That they were harvesting paper ballots and stuffing mailboxes. That there were thousands of facetiously, he said at his rallies, they found thousands and thousands of ballots underneath an Arizona rock. Uh, Giuliani was going to the Four Seasons to grandstand and say, "My cousin Vinny, how many fingers I'm holding up?" And then, in other words, facetiously, these clones of America run amok were trying to undermine 7 million American citizens that happen to be minorities that lives in the inner cities throughout the state of this country, to try to subvert us, to try to subdue us and say that somehow our ballots were fraudulent, that somehow there were dead people voting, that somehow there were illegal migrants voting, that somehow they were harvesting paper ballots, and somehow Israel and Italy was using satellites to zap the Dominion software, where you had people like clowns like Glenn Dell, the My Pillow guy, trying with Alex Jones, with conspirators that are so convoluted. That Alex Jones and people like Margie Taylor Greene believe that a plane never flew into the Pentagon in 9/11. That, in other words, 9/11 was a conspiracy that was done by the government. And this is Margie Taylor Greene, Michael Flynn, and Sidney Powell, QAnon occult leaders, QAnon occult leaders that believe that Kennedy Jr. is going to come back from the dead. He's going to rise up from the dead to be Trump's vice ticket, be on the presidential ticket for 2024. That's who Sidney Powell and Michael Flynn, uh, they squared themselves into that type of an occult that is led by a man supposedly that is named Q, while the shamans of QAnon and January 6th Trump supporters raided the Capitol building. This is a country run amok. Run amok. That Trump said, I can see why my voters wanted to hang Mike Pence, because he was weak. He should have appointed Trump delegates and sworn me in for a second term. So it's people like Trump and the circus acts that follow him and his base that is trying to toss this nation into a perilous path of disorder by trying to say false pretext to undermine 7 million American votes in swing states that happen to be minority votes. And so it's very pertinent that we streamline this technology to prevent scoundrels like Trump from ever trying to impose himself on this republic like a fascist, totalitarian, dictatorial ruler of the Republican Party. And for 2024, we're facing perilous times. So I believe that we could create technology that utilizes smartphones. So you'll be able to log into a government website. You can register, and the phone app will scan your face for facial recognition, will scan your retina for retina recognition, will scan your index finger for your fingerprint, and will also have your voice recognition. So a app in a government website where you'll be able to register with your smartphones, and these forensic details would impede anybody from like QAnon Sidney Powell and her sidekick Giuliani from ever trying to repeat what they did for 2020 when they were running around the country with the My Pillow guy trying to overthrow this nation's fair and free elections. So with forensic voting, it doesn't give the opportunity for a scoundrel like Trump and Michael Flynn martial law to be imposed on this nation with their convoluted, delusional endeavors of the mega movement, where when you have people like Steve Bannon caught on tape admitting that Trump is going to steal the election, he's going to claim they were stolen from him, and then we will crown him king of the republic. These are people that should never be allowed close to power again. They should be outlawed from practicing politics. They don't deserve the respect and the honor to be allowed to practice politics, let alone be nominated for 2024 to run for president again. So the smartphone technology, people will log into a government website, and the government website, you will be able to use your smartphones, and the smartphones will scan your identity, and you will register and vote every time. You will be able to vote, and nobody can deny you your freedom to vote and be counted for your vote. Be heard, meaning your vote counts. And nobody should be able to rip that right from you to vote your conscience when it comes to democracy. So, once you vote, you will be emailed a receipt. The receipt will show who you voted for, what date and time, and what candidates you voted for. So you will be able to print it out. And at the same time, the government will have the ability, the government will mail you, in case you don't have a printer, in case you don't have a printing machine, the government will mail you a receipt of who you voted for. And like I said, on your smartphone, you can save it on your emails or your cloud, your Google Cloud, or your Google Drive, or whatever file systems you have on your smartphone. You will be able to save, so you can. So if there's ever an audit, the paper trail and the forensic trail will tell 100% what candidate won and what candidate lost. There will be no wiggle room for a scoundrel like Trump to try to undermine 7 million citizens of their votes. You know, for Hillary Clinton, she had 3 million votes denied of her victory. In other words, she had 3 million more votes than Trump, but the corrupt delegate system, college electorate system, awarded Trump the victory for 2016. And they snatched it off of Hillary Clinton by denying her the majority votes of 3 million American citizens. They were trying to do and deny 7 million votes to President Biden in 2020. This system is getting out of control with these Republicans. So this technology would impede scoundrels that should be indicted and tossed into jail for trying to impose a coup d'etat and an insurrection and impose martial law with this freak QAnon Michael Flynn as his national security advisor. These scoundrels, these clowns of a circus act should be rounded up and tossed into jail. And we should teach the Republican Party that they can't keep on imposing Trumpisms on this nation. That at the end of the day, freedom must ring. And the reason I say freedom ring, I live in Philadelphia, the cradle of this nation's democracy. If I gotta crack the Liberty Bell and ring it on behalf of this nation's freedoms and liberties for all citizens to be accounted for in our democracy, then I will say, let freedom ring. Because at the end of the day, the Republicans have to be taught a lesson that they cannot disenfranchise citizens of this nation of their votes. So forensic voting is a system that, along with the paper trail and the forensic trail, it will be impossible for anybody to undermine the system ever again. So from the grassroots, from local elections in the individual states, all the way up to the federal level, all the way up to the presidential elections, this system will be streamlined for all candidates that are running for public office. And there will be no wiggle room for people like Kari Lake or Mastriano, failed Trump-appointed flunky nominees, to run off with the big lie and try to lie their way into public office, try to steal their way into public office with shamelessness of conjured up conspiracies that should be vanquished from this type of public arena when it comes to the nation and how we defend our democratic freedoms to vote. We should never entertain people like Kari Lake, Mastriano, and Trump fascism. We should never accept a demagogue. We should never give away our freedoms and be imprisoned by not having the ability to be counted for as a citizen. 3 million votes, they denied Hillary her victories for 2016. They were trying to disenfranchise the Democrats again by denying Biden 7 million votes. With Giuliani at the Four Seasons looking like he's perverting democracy as he stands by a porn shop talking about my cousin Vinny, how many fingers I'm holding up. As he comes to Philadelphia to the Civic Center to try to undermine Philadelphians because they happen to be populated by Latinos and blacks in this city. So they pick the swing states of minorities, Arizona, Georgia, and they only concentrate on those minority neighborhoods. Like they're trying to subvert us in this nation because we happen to be not fitting into this mega movement, because we don't like to be demagogued for being like Trump denying the civil rights of African Americans when they kneel down and sports players kneel down and pray for civil rights awareness. You gotta understand, Trump at the Charlottesville, Nazis, tiki torches, marching around General Lee. Trump decided to go after that event to his rallies, bragging about General Lee. General Lee was a great general. For 3 years after Charlottesville, Trump kept on bragging about General Lee and demagoguing sports players for being unpatriotic son of a bitches. That they're disrespecting the flag. But then Trump, as chief and commander, is flirting with the Confederacy and the symbolism of confederacies after Nazis are marching around the statues. That's what broke out the riots. The Africans could not be they were tired of being suppressed by this demagogue that we call Trump. Insensitivity rubbing salt in the wounds of civil rights as sports players kneeled for 3 years after Charlottesville. Sports players kneeled and prayed for civil rights awareness while this white, demagogic, alt-right Trump kept on bragging about General Lee at his rallies, and in the same tongue talking about that sports players are unpatriotic son of a bitches and they're disrespecting the flag. Trump Jr. said about Kentucky abolishing the Confederate flag that he don't know why they did that. There's nothing wrong with proud traditions. In other words, insinuating that Kentucky should have kept the Confederate flag and never changed it. Trump demagoguing migrants and robbing them of their integrities, human integrities, as migrants. Disparaging them like they're all inferior criminals from third world nations or rapists, criminals, lowlives, full of plagues. He said that a illegal migrant woman will cross over the border illegally, pregnant, squat down and drop a baby in the middle of the desert. And then he was insinuating that, you know why I call this baby an anchor baby? A slur. Denigrating migrants. Even the way he denigrates with xenophobia the integrities of migrants, Latino migrants. The way he denigrates civil rights of African Americans. The way he denigrates and turns a blind eye to white supremacy by denigrating minorities. And then try to undermine the electorate system. Try to hang his vice president and saying that he could see why they wanted to hang him. Because he was weak for not appointing him and crowning him like Steve Bannon said, we will crown him after he tries to steal the election, we will crown him king of the republic. Steve Bannon was recorded saying that he's not going to win, but he's going to claim he won. He's going to claim it was stolen off of him. And then we will crown him king of the republic. We can't afford this to be going on in this nation. These Republicans need to be cleansed and purified, free from this type of fascism, because it is leaving this country run amok.
Thank you for calling the office of the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi. Speaker's office, how may I help you?
How you doing? I spoke to a gentleman from that answered phone calls in Nancy Pelosi's office. I didn't quite get his name, but I'm trying to lobby Congress to phase in forensic voting. So people, the way the system will work is that through the grassroots level all the way up to the federal level, people will register using forensic voting, meaning they will be scanned with face recognition, retina recognition, voice recognition, and fingerprint recognition. Once they scan into the systems, that the government will set up a website, an app, that they will be able to download, and then they will be able to vote using their smartphones. Once the smartphone app will scan their retina, face recognition, voice recognition, and finger recognition. Like that, the government will know that people like Trump can't undermine the system, that they can't use the system fragmented the way it is today to undermine a fair and free election. So I'm designing this and lobbying Congress in this initiative to phase it in time for 2024. Because what's happening now with the Trump supporters is getting out of control. The way they assaulted Nancy Pelosi's husband, the way they tried to blow up Kamala Harris in the DNC, around January 6th, they were trying to blow her up with 2 pipe bombs. While Trump supporters were raiding the Capitol, they were trying to hang Mike Pence, they were trying to kidnap the governor from Michigan and execute her in the firing squad. It's getting out of control. So that's why I am initiating this and lobbying members of Congress to mandate this into the federal law, that from the grassroots all the way up to the presidential elections, to the executive elections of presidents, all the way down to the grassroots of mayors, governors, city councils. If y'all streamline this process of forensic voting and then have the government agency oversee it, it won't give no wiggle room for people like Trump or Sidney Powell or Giuliani to try to use false pretense, like Trump is doing. What he's doing right now, he's appointing nominees for governors and attorney generals in swing states to undermine the fair and free elections of minorities, to alienate us in our swing states. And so I want to get President Biden and Nancy Pelosi on the same page when it comes to my petition for this for these strategic forensic voting to be passed into law. And so I created a YouTube channel that's named after me. And if you could grab a pen to write down my name and review the tutorials I set up on the channel to explain to lawmakers what is exactly forensic voting and how it will work. Because, like I said, I'm trying to avoid this nation falling apart because of Trumpisms for 2024. I don't want this nation to be undermined by drifters like Trump and his lawyers that can bring upon this nation damnation to let us pray, lead us into where his false pretenses into preying on minorities and disenfranchising our popular votes for 2024. So forensic voting would ensure that there's no way for Trump to wiggle out and say that the elections were stolen, because it is based on forensics. It's based on people's forensic identities, and there's no room for him to say that they were packing ballot boxes, that there were dead people voting, that there were illegal migrants voting, that there was ballot harvesting. All his shenanigans of trying to overthrow this government is still in process, and it's set in motion for him to impede upon this union on 2024, his rebellion. He wants to bring a revolution that will undermine the foundations of this union for 2024. So forensic voting is a matter of national security, and I'm working with this effort, communicating with President Biden's office, but I want to work hand in hand with members of the Congress and of the Senate to pass this and vote it up for passing bipartisanly on the floor in order to evade an incident and avoid what happened on January 6th because of Trump repeating himself for 2024. So I want Nancy Pelosi and the staffers and the committee members, bipartisanly, for Congress to vote on what I'm lobbying when it comes to forensic voting. I don't want to oversee the technology, but I want to propose it for government to phase it in and for the government bipartisanly to supervise it and manage it. Because
I'm sorry to interrupt. I do have another call on the line, but if you'd like a meeting with, members of our staff or the speaker,
no, what I want,
something that you'd like to relay.
What I want y'all to give me a response. I want you to see the tutorial videos. So write down my name, and when y'all get a chance, review the videos, and then give me a reply of how y'all feel about the technology or the initiatives, and see if it's possible to bring it up on the floor for a vote.
I recommend that you go. Are you from San Francisco?
No, I'm from Pennsylvania. So I've been working.
You go to speaker.gov and post what you want us to do there, including a link to the content that you'd like us to see, and send it to our office.
Well, say that again. I didn't quite hear what you said.
You can go to speaker.gov and leave a message for the speaker there, and it'll come to our office.
So that the internet site is speaker.gov.
Correct.
Okay. I'll do the proposal, but then I'll call back to see when y'all are willing to review the tutorials, and then just give me your opinion and your feedback. Because I'm working with Biden on this initiative and members of the January 6th committee, and it's pertinent for Nancy to based on what's going on in this country, she's at the top when it comes to this issue, and she needs to protect this union, and forensic voting is the only way to do it. All right, I'll forward her an email, and I'll call back to follow up.
Okay, thank you. Have a good rest of your day.
You too.